What if you were being terrorized by a smiling demon that only you could see? This pop star just became the victim of an evil spirit that ruins your life by tormenting you in the most brutal ways imaginable. And it won't stop until everyone is dead. We're here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the smile demon in Smile 2. This singer is about to realize that there's a lot more to lose than just your career. It's been 6 days since Rose's death in the first film, when her boyfriend Joel was cursed by the smile demon. He knows that he'll be killed if he doesn't do something fast. And the only way to escape the curse is by passing it on to someone else after making them witness a death. Sitting across from a criminal's house, he waits until a red Porsche pulls into the driveway before rushing up to the man and forcing him to go inside. They find his brother sitting on the couch, but Joel warns him not to try anything. After confirming that these two are killers themselves, he tells the brother to watch before pulling out a switchblade and brutally stabbing the man to death. Panicking, the brother reaches for his weapon and the officer instinctively fires back, but that was his biggest mistake. The man quickly dies from his injuries and Joel freaks out knowing that the plan did not work. But that's when he turns around and realizes that someone else was there the entire time. It's just some random guy named Lewis who doesn't even know what's going on, and the bad news is that now he's the one with the curse. Before Joel can even explain, 3 more criminals pull up in a G-Wagon, forcing him to retreat back inside. Taking cover in one of the rooms, he's able to escape through a window just as the ops kick the door down, and even manages to dodge all 7 shots fired randomly in his direction. But what he can't dodge is the Dodge Ram 1500 pickup truck that absolutely obliterates him when he runs out into the street, leaving a trail of blood, guts, and body parts behind. That makes 3 down, with 3 more to go.
Okay, well damn, that was intense. Now, Joel here actually had a solid plan, but it all fell apart because of a few critical mistakes. First off, it needs to be said that even though things didn't go exactly as planned, he technically did achieve his goal of transferring the curse. Sure, Lewis saw his face, but that problem would take care of itself in about 3 to 6 days, so he would have been home free if he'd managed to escape. And that's always why you need to look both ways before you cross the road. The next mistake came down to his choice of targets. His choice made a lot of sense from a moral perspective, because, after all, you can't lose too much sleep over sicking the demon on 2 guys who totally deserve it. But when you go after criminals, you have to expect the unexpected. As a police officer, Joel should have known that, business like this often has a lot of customers coming and going, so with that in mind, he should have been a lot more careful about scouting the house first, making sure that only the 2 brothers were inside. He also chose to go during broad daylight when they're alert and ready for anything. Knowing these guys' habits, I would have waited until later when they've been partying all day and then tried to catch them in a vulnerable state where they'd be a lot easier to manage. Of course, Joel was working against time here, but it's possible to buy some time by using the demon's own habits against it. Remember, it needs a witness to transfer to, so as long as he kept himself isolated, he could have waited for the perfect moment to jump on the brothers. They're also heavily armed, and you can't expect the guy to just cooperate after you killed his brother right in front of him. The first thing he should have done was have the brother throw his weapon away, and then tied him up so that he wouldn't be able to interfere with Joel's plan. It might not seem like it, but Joel actually got off pretty easy. At least he's dead, but now it's Lewis who has to deal with this demonic possession. The worst part is, he has no idea what the hell is going on, but there's a way that he can figure it out. Joel didn't have time to explain, but if Lewis was paying attention during the encounter, the events themselves actually told him everything that he'll need to know. As the witness died, Joel was trying to keep him alive, shouting it needs someone to pass to. Then once Joel noticed Lewis, he started maniacally apologizing that it wasn't meant for him, and shouting to the air that he didn't know anyone else was here. It's a pretty big logical jump to make, but from this information, we can piece together that he's just been possessed by a demon that can only be transferred to someone else by making them witness a death. And even though he might not believe it at first, as things slowly deteriorate for him over the next few days, he'll have no choice but to accept it's true. That's the bad news, but the good news is that Joel also just laid out the entire escape plan for him. Since Lewis is already involved with criminals, it shouldn't be too hard for him to find 2 more bad guys to use as his next targets. And as long as he learns from Joel's mistakes here, he should be able to escape the curse before it kills him next.
A few days later, music superstar Sky Riley is preparing for her upcoming tour. It's been a year since she was badly injured in a fatal car accident that caused the death of her boyfriend, Paul. And although she puts on a happy face for the crowds, on the inside, she's still struggling with the trauma. She's trying to get her life back on track after finally kicking her bad habits. But tonight, everything is going to change. At rehearsal, Sky's going hard practicing the routine for one of her songs when she accidentally tweaks an injury in her back. She's clearly still recovering from the accident, but she demands to keep going even though her choreographer Anton wants to take a break. After practice, her manager mom Elizabeth warns her that she has a busy schedule tomorrow, telling her to go to bed as soon as they get home. But Sky here has other plans. She needs something to manage the pain, so she texts her old buddy Lewis and he tells her to come over. As soon as they get back to the building, the singer immediately sneaks out and takes a cab over to Lewis's place. He should be expecting her, but when she knocks on the door, he yanks her inside and holds a f***ing samurai sword up to her neck. She can tell right away that this dude is tweaking, bro. And the strangest thing is that he has no memory of sending those texts. Apologizing, he tries to explain that some really weird stuff has been going on, but when he sees that she's getting ready to leave, he quickly changes the subject and convinces her to sit down. Her buddy goes to get the stuff while she waits on the couch, turning off the TV when a badly timed story about her accident comes on the news. After a minute or two, she starts to wonder what's taking him so long, but when she tries calling him, the guy doesn't answer. Just then, Lewis here comes running out of the darkness, screaming like he just saw a ghost. Looking up, he becomes fixated on something that only he can see before falling to the ground and choking to death right in front of her. As Sky runs over to help him, he turns to look straight at her with a horrifying smile crossing his entire face. All of a sudden, her friend grabs a 35-pound weight and starts doing some extremely aggressive curls. And by the time that he's done, entire chunks of his face are just falling right off his skull. Terrified, Sky stares at him in a trance until he finally falls over dead, making 4 down with 2 more to go. She's about to call for help, but thinks twice when she looks around the room and realizes that the situation does not look good for her. Instead, she decides to sneak out without letting anyone know, but what she doesn't know is that her nightmare is just getting started. Back at home, Sky's anxiety is spiking again, and big clumps of her hair start falling out from the stress. Unable to sleep, she's lying awake in bed when she hears a moist crunching sound from somewhere in the darkness, and looks up to see the horribly disfigured man standing over her. Startled, she clicks on the lights and the man disappears, but there's nothing that could prepare her for what's about to happen next.
Okay, this girl has too much on her plate, and the last thing that she needs right now is to get possessed by a demon. But there's some good news. She might be facing a lot of pressure because of her high status, but she also has a lot more resources at her disposal than the average person. So what she needs to do now is stop making impulsive decisions that only end up getting her in trouble and focus on getting her life back on the right track first. Sky here has to deal with the challenge of getting ready for a world tour, while also recovering from both the physical and mental trauma of her accident. Instead of pushing herself to the brink, she needs to listen to Anton's advice. Take it slow, and go through her own professional resources to help manage the pain. If she'd done that, then she never would have ended up in this apartment of nightmares in the first place. With that being said, I think the fact that she didn't instantly leave when he answered the door with a samurai sword says a lot about this girl's survival instincts. And it's not good. Trust me, if someone is that paranoid, there's probably a reason, and you don't want anything to do with it. As you can see, it only took 10 minutes from walking in the door before everything went to shit But Sky really should have called the police here. As bad as it might have looked for her, trying to cover it up is much worse, and it's only going to make her more afraid, isolated, and paranoid, which is exactly what the demon wants. It's only been a few hours, and Sky here is already having visions, which means that the possession is already setting in. Of course, she doesn't know what's really going on yet, so the first step to solving the problem is making sure that she can trust her own mind. Starting like now, Sky needs to get plenty of sleep, stay hydrated, and seek professional help from a therapist who can help her process the trauma. She also needs to stay away from any substances that could alter her perception of reality. If she knows that she's taking care of herself mentally and physically, then she can rule out the possibility that this is all in her head, taking her one step closer to actually solving the problem. Instead of denying it, she needs to accept that what happened with Lewis was far from normal and start trying to find out why he suddenly went insane. Her best source of information would have been at Lewis's apartment, but she could still sneak back to search for any evidence, like notes or messages that he might have left behind. If she had a chance to look through his phone, she could check his calls, messages, and search history to see if anything sticks out. The only problem is, once the police find his body, the place is going to become a crime scene, so she'll have to be careful that the authorities aren't watching if she decides to go back. Otherwise, she can try contacting any mutual friends between them and see if he mentioned anything to them before he died. Her other option is to do what Rose and Joel did and research similar incidents to see if there were any survivors, because that person could explain her options for how to get rid of the curse. However she decides to approach it, the sooner that she figures out what's really going on here, the better her chances of survival.
At work the next day, her mom notices that Sky looks tired and suggests that she reaches out to her ex-best friend Gemma for some help. It's been a while since they spoke, and it's safe to say that they didn't end things on good terms, so she's doubtful that the girl even wants to hear from her. That's when the record company boss Darius shows up, saying how he needs her to give a speech at a fundraiser the following night, and he puts her in a position where she literally can't say no. They spend the rest of the day taking press photos, but while she's dressing up in all these goofy outfits, all that she can think about are the very real consequences of what happened the night before. Feeling desperate, she's about to text Gemma when she gets a message from an unknown number that stops the girl dead in her tracks. Whoever it is wants to know if she was at Lewis's apartment, but before she can even decide how to respond, she hears another snap from somewhere in the room. When she turns around, it looks like no one's there, but when she looks in the mirror, she sees zombie Lewis standing directly behind her. The vision matches her movements as she rocks back and forth until suddenly it jams its fingers into her mouth and pulls her lips into that horrific smile. The singer screams as the door to her room opens for real, but this time it's just her management team, saying how they came to see how she was doing. Later that day, Sky is busy doing a meet and greet for her fans. She's playing along even though her life is secretly falling apart, but the whole vibe changes when a creepy dude named Alfredo starts getting a little too excited about her perfect skin. Security drags the guy away, but the fans are still waiting for her, and she only has a second to breathe before going back out. Just when she thinks it's over, they call the next person in line, and this time it's a young girl with that same haunting smile. The girl only stares at her, refusing to say a word as Sky nervously reaches out and signs her shirt. When they take a picture, she keeps staring directly at her instead of looking at the camera, but nobody else even seems to notice that there's something wrong. Back at her apartment, she nervously thinks about responding to the mystery text, but finally decides to just call Gemma instead. The call gets sent to a voicemail, but her friend calls her back right away, and after some awkward catching up, she agrees to come over later that night. While she's waiting, Sky takes a seat at the piano, but just when she's deep in her feelings, she hears a glass hit the floor in the kitchen. Worried, she gets up to check it out, but the apartment door is locked, so it must have just been an accident. Grabbing a broom from the closet, she's about to clean it up when she notices a yellow shirt lying on the floor. It's the same one that she signed for that creepy dude Alfredo. and as she looks around the corner, she sees a trail of his dirty laundry leading into the bedroom. That's when the lights go out, and when she looks down the hall, she sees the man standing there just smiling at her in the darkness. All of a sudden, he charges towards her at a dead sprint as she rushes for the door, yanking it open only to find Gemma waiting on the other side. Without explaining, she picks up a weapon and goes back towards the hallway. But now it seems like nobody's there, and it looks like the whole attack was all in her head. She's losing track of time, with no way to tell whether an hour or 5 minutes has gone by. But she's feeling better now that her friend is here to help.
Okay, damn girl, you know it's bad when even Alfredo over here can tell that you're sad on the inside. Sky here needs to get a grip before this spirals out of control, but the problem is, she still can't really decide if this is happening or it's all in her head. The girl has had a busy couple of days, and things are now only ramping up. It seems like someone out there knows what happened at Lewis's apartment, but she has no way to tell if they're an enemy or a friend, and when the consequences of responding are so high, she needs to be extremely careful. On top of that, she's having a full-blown auditory and visual hallucination, making it even harder to trust her own perception of reality. Which brings us to that absolutely bizarre interaction back at the meet and greet. No, I'm not talking about that creepy guy Alfredo, although that was definitely bizarre. I'm talking about that creepy smiling girl. This shows that she's not even safe out in public. The entity can come for her at any time, any place. And if it causes her to have another outburst in front of the fans, then that could make things even worse. Now, with that being said, what she hasn't realized yet is that this incident with the girl could be her first step to realizing what the hell is really going on, because the entire interaction was captured on camera. If she goes back and watches the tape with at least 2 trusted friends, she can confirm, without a doubt, whether the girl was actually smiling like that, or if it was all just a hallucination. The camera doesn't lie. It's critical to double check her own reality as often as she can. That way, she can't get tricked by her own mind. I'd start keeping a journal of every event, taking down the time, place, and details to help keep my memories more consistent, and to see if any patterns start to appear. Whenever she sees something strange, Sky should start recording it, giving her more tangible evidence of reality that she can use to resist the manipulation. She can perform reality checks by looking at the clock to see if time feels distorted, or by carrying around a sanity totem, a small object that only she knows the details of that she can use to stay anchored in reality. As a wealthy celebrity, she can easily hire as much help as she needs, and the extra eyes will make it easier to watch out for any traps. Speaking of traps, she needs to be very careful about how she responds to that message, and that's if she decides to respond at all. I'd plug the number into a reverse phone search or hire a private investigator if it comes up as unknown. They can extract the routing data from the message to get the approximate location from where it was sent, which should help us narrow down who they are and what they want. If she's careful, Sky might be able to stop this before it gets any worse, but it won't be long before it's already too late.
When Gemma asks her what's wrong, the singer has trouble figuring out even where to begin. After gathering her thoughts, she tries her best to explain what happened back at Lewis's apartment, telling her how the guy was acting paranoid about something before he finally snapped. Gemma warns her not to call the police, supporting her fear that this would ruin her life. But she's a true ride or die, so even though the story sounds crazy, she offers to spend the night if it'll help Sky feel better. In the middle of the night, the singer wakes up from a terrifying nightmare about the accident that killed her boyfriend. She tries getting some comfort from her friend, but strangely, Gemma starts acting completely different, telling her that she's a horrible person. Her friend's face transforms into that big evil smile, only to suddenly morph into a skull with headlights shining out of her eyes and mouth. Freaking horrified, Sky jumps out of bed, but suddenly, now it's broad daylight again, and Gemma is standing in the door with 2 cups of tea. Looking at the time, she's starting to realize that it's already past 9, meaning that she's late for work. She asks Gemma to come with her, but the girl can't bail on her other commitments so abruptly, and their conversation gets cut short when Elizabeth shows up to speed things along. The label executives are pissed at her for showing up so late, but Sky hits the dressing room and starts going through her pre-game rituals. This time, they're doing a full rehearsal with costumes, lights, and everything. And it starts off with everything going fine, but in the middle of the performance, a vision of her boyfriend Paul suddenly appears in front of her. Startled, the girl stumbles backwards as the bones snap through her leg. But while she's lying on the floor screaming in agony, everyone else just stands there staring at her. Anton rushes up to the stage, but now that the lights are on, she can see that her leg is perfectly fine. Naturally furious, she gets up and starts shouting at the backup dancers, convinced that one of them must have been in the wrong place. But to everyone else, it's clear that she's making things up in her head. The singer storms off to her dressing room, but just as she's getting there, she sees her assistant Josh walking out with that terrifying smile on his face. Opening the door, she's horrified to discover that her entire dressing room is completely trashed. And she knows right away that they're going to blame it all on her. That's exactly what happens when her mother shows up, because there's just no logical reason why Josh would ever do something like this. She's worried that Sky here might be back on the stuff, but the girl insists that's not what's happening, even though she can't come up with a better explanation. To Elizabeth, it seems like her daughter is spiraling into anxiety from all the pressure of the tour. But they can't just walk away now, especially with the fundraiser coming up later that night. Sky begs her mother to understand that she's not ready to get back on stage in front of a crowd, but the woman insists that they need to keep their promises, leaving her with no choice but to play along. Behind the scenes at the gala, Sky keeps blowing up her friend's phone with texts, but now the girl's not responding and she's coming off more demanding than anything else. Just then, she gets another text from the mystery number saying that they know who she is. A fly keeps buzzing around her face, causing Sky to smear her lipstick, but now it's time for her big appearance, and she nervously heads out on stage to give her speech.
Okay, Sky here clearly isn't learning from her mistakes, because if she was, then she would be running in the opposite direction. Right now, she's relying solely on Gemma as her only lifeline, but this is a risky choice, because the demon is already using her friend as another method of manipulation. When someone gets possessed by a demon, the evil spirit always gains control by systematically breaking down their mental defenses. Since it's always watching, it saw how freaked out she was by that interaction with Alfredo back at the stadium, and decided to use that fear against her. The hallucination in the apartment put her in the most vulnerable mental state possible, making her unquestionably accept Gemma's help when she happened to show up at just the right time. Then she immediately opened up about having no one to talk to, and essentially told the demon exactly what it wanted to know. This is why I said before that she needs multiple ways to test her reality, because if the demon can take the form of anyone, then she can't even trust her own best friend. The good news is that she has two easy ways of figuring this out. She can check the cameras in her building to see if Gemma was really there, and double check with her mom to make sure that she actually saw Gemma in the morning. The same thing goes for the incident at Sky's dressing room. The worst part is that this was actually her best chance yet to prove that something outside of her control was going on. But by instantly flipping out instead of reacting to the situation logically, she only made everyone question her sanity even more. It should be really simple to check the cameras and see if Joshua actually went in there and destroyed the place or not. And either way, this would give her more evidence to back up what she's trying to tell them. The demon started off by making her doubt herself, but now it's changing strategy. Whenever she's in front of crowds, it's making her freak out, causing even her own team to lose trust in her, and making her feel that much more isolated. It started off as just a smiling girl in the crowd, but now it can make her hallucinate injuries and even entire people out of thin air. If she goes up on stage, it's only a matter of time before something goes horribly wrong. They're pressuring her into doing it because of a commitment, but the honest truth is that pop stars flake on their commitments all the time and don't get in much trouble. She's been through worse, and I think she can handle the fallout for not showing up at the gala. and if she plays her cards right, she can make people look like assholes for even questioning her. Her career is going to take a lot of heat, but personally, I'd rather keep my life, so I'd walk right out of this gala and get back to focusing on my own survival. But as usual, Sky here is about to give the demon exactly what it wants.
She starts reading off from the teleprompter, but within seconds, the words suddenly come to a stop. With nothing prepared, all that she can do is start freestyling off the dome in an attempt to save it. But it only takes her 2 sentences before things start getting way too personal. And the vibe in the room just gets more and more awkward the longer it all goes on. Instead of giving an inspirational speech, she goes off on this whole existential tangent about how success can't fix the miserable person who she is inside. And meanwhile, everyone's just sitting there wondering when they're going to cut her mic. That's when the teleprompter starts working again, and Sky here tries to wrap it up. But when she reaches the end, it tells her to introduce her dead boyfriend Paul. Looking into the crowd, she watches in horror as he gets up from a table and starts slowly approaching the stage. The singer screams at the top of her lungs that her boyfriend is dead, and when she opens her eyes, the vision is finally gone. She's made a total fool of herself in front of everyone there, but just when it looks like things can't get any worse, an old woman tries to comfort her, and she completely flips out, sending the lady crashing to the floor. Everyone has their cameras out, meaning that it won't be long before this hits the news, and now it looks like Sky's worst fears are actually coming true. She goes home to her closet full of everything that she could ever want, but now the only thing that she wants is for her friend to answer her phone. That's when the mysterious number starts texting her again, saying how she's in danger, and this time she finally responds back. They tell her that the hallucinations are actually real, sending her a video of Lewis on the night before his death. In it, he keeps focusing on something in the corner that only he can see, saying how it just stands there smiling at him. All of a sudden, he appears right next to Sky in her own apartment, and she falls to the floor in shock. But of course, it was just another mind game. Completely fed up, she puts on a quick disguise and gets in the elevator, texting the mystery man for a public place where they can meet up. Her mom tries calling just as she arrives at the bar, but she ducks the call and heads inside, trying her best to keep a low profile. The man waves her down from a booth at the very back, and the girl sends his picture to Gemma just in case he tries anything funny. Promising that he means no harm, he introduces himself as Morris, and he explains that he's been tracking the smile demon ever since it killed his brother. He was trying to warn Lewis, but got there too late, where he found her number on the dead guy's phone. According to him, the demon can only be seen by the current host, and it feeds off their negative energy until it finally drives them insane, when it kills them in front of a witness and moves on to the next person. They can't ask the police for help, but he has a plan for how they can stop it once and for all. He wants to break the cycle by stopping Sky's heart in a room without any witnesses. Without leaving a host, the demon should hopefully die off, and then he'll use his skills as an ER nurse to bring her back curse-free. This is all too much for Sky to handle, and the whole time she's been getting calls from her managers non-stop. The more that she panics, a crowd starts to gather as they realize who she is, forcing her to rush out of the bar before she can even make up her mind.
Okay, this right here changes everything. Sky finally found someone who actually knows what the hell is going on. Not only that, but they have a plan for how to stop it, and to me, that actually sounds like it should work. It's risky, but if you break it down, Morris's plan actually makes a lot of sense. He wants to intentionally induce a cardiac arrest, causing Sky's heart to stop beating and the oxygen to stop circulating throughout her body. When this happens, the person is pronounced clinically dead, but that doesn't mean there's no coming back. At least, not yet. For a brief period, their brain is actually still alive, and you have about 2 minutes to supply it with oxygen before the damage is irreversible. That's a pretty small window for success, but as we're going to find out in just a minute, Morris here even accounted for that. He wants to try the plan in a walk-in freezer, using the cold to extend Sky's lifespan. The strategy is called controlled hypothermia, and it's actually used in real-life emergencies. The lower temperatures reduce the body's body's metabolic rate, meaning that the cells consume oxygen a lot slower. When cells don't get enough oxygen, they release toxic chemicals and cause damage even after being resuscitated, a condition known as reperfusion injury. By slowing down this process, they can give themselves as long as 30 minutes before the lack of oxygen causes too much damage, greatly increasing Sky's chances of survival. Then all that's left to do is bring her back with a dose of adrenaline, and as long as their timing is right, they should be able to pull this off. Since the demon needs someone to transfer to, doing it in a room with no witnesses should break the chain and finally release Sky from the curse. She's dead either way, even if it doesn't work, so when you think about it, she has every reason to give it a try. But there's just one problem. We need to make sure that we can trust Morris first. This should be simple enough because, just like always, Sky is surrounded by fans and cameras everywhere she goes. All she has to do is look at the photo she sent to Gemma or try to find recent videos tagged at the location, and she'll have definitive proof if Morris was ever there or not. Even if he turns out to be just another hallucination, she can still find a way to try the plan on her own.
Reaching her wit's end, Sky decides that her only option is to bail before the situation gets any worse. Grabbing her suitcase, she's rushing to pack her things when she tweaks that injury in her back again, and this time the frustration causes her to officially crash out. Grabbing a mirror from the counter, she chucks it through the glass shower on the other side of the room, and the outburst finally helps her calm down. Just when she thinks it's over, she goes back to the hall and turns on the lights, only to see a whole squad of smiling demons blocking her path. They all look like fans dressed in merch from her tour, inching closer and closer every time she moves and freezing in place whenever she stops. The monsters stare down at her like wild animals about to pounce, and when she makes a run for the door, they all get up and start chasing after her in some kind of bizarre interpretive dance of death. Unimpressed by their dance moves, she's just about to reach the door when the demons surround her and drag her back in. They slam her into the piano and start tearing out pieces of her hair, grabbing at her body with their demonic hands. As she screams, one of the arms forces its way into her mouth, going all the way up to the elbow until she finally blacks out. While unconscious, she relives the memory of the night that Paul died in the accident. They'd been having a substance-fueled screaming match on their drive home from whatever party when he made the ultimate mistake and called his girlfriend crazy. To be fair, she was acting pretty damn crazy, but things got serious when he started mocking her for crying. All of a sudden, Sky reached for the steering wheel and yanked it to the side, causing them to fly off a cliff in the accident that instantly took his life. As the car hits the trees, she suddenly wakes up in a hospital bed with her mom assuring her that everything is going to be fine. Apparently, they found her passed out on the living room floor and took her to a private clinic where she can rest up before the tour starts tomorrow. Sky starts asking for her phone, but the woman refuses to give it to her until she calms down. Desperate, she starts begging her to just postpone the tour, but too many people have invested too much money for her to back out now. So the only way it's happening is if she checks herself into rehab. Even then, they'll still get sued into oblivion and both of their careers will be done forever. But to Sky, it seems like her mother only cares about making money. The woman explains that they've given her too many second chances, but if she wants to throw it all away, then there's nothing that she can do to stop her. Suddenly, her face transforms into the demonic smile as Skylar realizes that the demon is back. Shattering a mirror with her bare hands, she picks up a piece of broken glass and just starts going full Swiss cheese with that thing. And there's nothing that the girl can do but pull out her IV and run for the door. Reaching for the handle, the singer realizes that she's the one holding the glass, and a look of shock crosses her face as the horrifying truth sinks in. Looking down, she sees that her hospital gown is covered in blood, and her mother is slowly bleeding to death on the floor. The girl tries snapping herself out of it, wishing that it was all just a dream, but that makes 5 down with 1 more to go, and that's when Josh knocks on the door.
Okay, this is one of those moments where I think we all know what I'm about to say next. Holy shit, girl, that was not on the vision board for 2024. Pop stars get caught up in all kinds of drama all the time, and they almost always land on their feet, but I think the only place you'll be performing now is a padded cell, and that's if you're lucky, because Sky, you have astronomically f***ed up. What you just did definitely put the nail in the coffin, but the truth is that you've been totally screwed ever since that night at Lewis's apartment. And it's not just because of the demon. Forget the public backlash. Do you realize how much trouble you'd be in when the police found out? We're talking prison time, when all you had to do was just be honest about your mistake. Sure, it would have been embarrassing, but that's a lot better than intentionally covering up a death. And from that moment on, it was all downhill from there. After literally the first night, the evidence was absolutely piling up that you weren't just having a mental breakdown, you were caught in the middle of some seriously weird shit. And it was obvious that you couldn't trust your own perception. I mean, how many hallucinations was it going to take before you said to yourself, you know what, I should probably get this checked out? But instead of doing anything about it, you just keep pushing yourself to the brink, both mentally and physically. And it looks like now, you finally snapped. The craziest part is, this isn't even the first time you've killed someone. No wonder you feel so guilty over Paul's death, it was completely your fault. I'm starting to realize the smartest person of all was Gemma here, because at least she had the common sense to cut you off when she realized how toxic you are. If you think things are bad now, then you have no idea what's coming next. But one thing's for sure, Sky, you have seriously f***ed up.
Rushing over, Sky slams the door shut and pretends that she's changing, sending Josh away on a mission to find the soda. As soon as he's gone, she quickly puts on a hoodie and covers her mom up with the blanket, taking her phone as she rushes for the exit. Just then, Gemma happens to find her, saying that she came in a car with a driver, and the singer takes this as her opportunity to escape. Running up to the limo, she forces the driver out and jumps behind the wheel, but Gemma refuses to let her go alone, and the girls speed away just as the police get to the scene. As they're speeding through the city, Sky starts texting the nurse, saying that she's finally ready to try his plan. He responds right away with an address on the other side of the city, and she tells Gemma to head over there as fast as she can. Sky here is just starting to feel a slight sense of relief when she gets a phone call from Gemma. Confused, Sky asks if she's been to her apartment, but Gemma reminds her that they haven't seen each other for over a year. And when she looks over, the Gemma in the driver's seat is staring at her with that same evil smile. The demon only laughs at her frustration, but Sky decides that enough is enough, and keeps repeating to herself over and over again that this is all in her head until it finally works. Suddenly, she wakes up behind the wheel of an SUV somewhere on Staten Island, and takes off speeding towards the meeting point where Morris is waiting for her. There's no time to explain why she's covered in blood, and they both rush inside where he leads her back to the large walk-in freezer. The place looks like something straight out of Jigsaw's surgery school, but they need the cold to keep her brain alive long enough for Morris to bring her back. With no other choice, Sky lies down on the table and gets ready to die, even thanking Morris for helping her do it. Before they start, he wants to know why she finally decided to trust him, and she explains that it's because there's nothing left for her to lose. But at least this way, they can stop it from hurting anyone else. Saying that he'll be right back, the man goes outside to grab something, but Sky starts to panic as soon as he's gone. All of a sudden, blood starts dripping down from the ceiling as a vision of herself from the night of the accident appears directly above her, opening her seatbelt and crashing down right on top of her. The demon lifts her up and pins her up against the wall, tormenting her as it tosses her across the room. Before she can run for the door, it holds her down and paralyzes her with its absolutely terrifying glare. But just when it looks like she's done for, Sky chomps down and bites the creature's thumbs off, giving her a chance to reach the needle. Thinking that she has it beat, she quickly takes a dose of the medication. But imagine her surprise when the plan doesn't work. Cackling, the demon reveals that it was all Jill a trick, telling her to break a leg as it closes her inside of a dark box. When the doors open, Skye realizes that she's actually on stage for the first night of her tour, and there's a stadium full of fans all waiting to see the show. Looking into the crowd, she sees her mother in the front row telling her to smile, and at the end of the stage, there's another version of herself glaring at her with that demonic look on its face. All of a sudden, her stomach explodes as a massive, fleshy demon of borderline indescribable terror emerges from her body, leaving Skye too stunned to move. Reaching out, the monster tears open her jaw and forces its way inside her mouth. But to everyone else, it looks like she's having a seizure. Suddenly, the real Skye gets to her feet with the same terrifying smile, only to pick up a microphone and use it to give the last performance of her life. And now, it looks like the demon's turn to go on its first world tour.
Smile 2. That is what's up. What a crazy franchise. What a crazy story. What a crazy villain. Man, I hope they keep this franchise going for a long time. We need Smile 10 up in this. But anyways, I have to know, everyone out there, is there anything that you would have done differently, Meat Shields? Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out that How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this one. I'm the Guy. I'll see you in the next video, and have a damn good day.